The email wasn't supposed to exist. The words written inside weren't meant to be seen. But when the leak happened, the entire world stopped. Steph Curry read the message once, then again, his hands gripping the phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. Across the country, LeBron James stared at the same words, knowing that everything he had ever played for, everything he had ever believed in, might have been a lie. The year was 2008, and the world had never heard of Stephen Curry. He was just a kid from Davidson, a scrawny, overlooked guard who was still fighting to prove he belonged. Scouts doubted him. Experts dismissed him. He wasn't built like a star, they said. He wasn't strong enough. He wasn't athletic enough. But on the court, none of that mattered. March Madness had become his proving ground, a place where he could silence the doubters, where every deep three and impossible finish made people take a second look. That night, he had just finished another electrifying performance, carrying Davidson to an upset win. The crowd was electric, but Steph's mind was elsewhere, still dissecting every play, still trying to be better. Then LeBron James walked into the locker room. At the time, LeBron was already a king, a generational talent, an MVP-caliber player who was expected to define the NBA for years to come. He had no reason to be here, no reason to care about a college kid who wasn't even a lock for the draft. But he had watched the game, had seen something in Steph that reminded him of himself. A player with something to prove, someone who played with fire because the world didn't believe in him yet. LeBron didn't say much. He just smiled, pulled off his jersey, and handed it to Steph. It wasn't just a gift. It was a message to the future of basketball. Keep proving them wrong. Steph barely knew what to say. He looked down at the jersey, at the signature scribbled across the fabric, at the words that felt heavier than they should. He had grown up watching LeBron, admiring him, dreaming of one day stepping onto the same court. And now, one of the greatest players in the world was telling him that he belonged. For years, that jersey stayed with him. He framed it, hung it on the wall of his childhood home. It wasn't just memorabilia. It was a reminder of what was possible, of what he could be. But fate had a way of turning idols into rivals. Fast forward to 2015. Steph Curry was no longer an underdog. He was a champion. The same people who had doubted him, who had questioned his size, his shooting style, his durability, they were all silenced. The Golden State Warriors had become the most dominant force in basketball, and Steph was at the center of it all. But for all the accolades, for all the records, there was one thing that had never changed. LeBron James was still the king. The media loved it. 2 stars, 2 different paths, 1 throne. Is this the passing of the torch? Can Steph dethrone LeBron? Who is the real face of the NBA? The rivalry wasn't just on the court. It was everywhere. Every finals matchup between them became a cultural event. Warriors versus Cavs. LeBron versus Steph. Legacy versus legacy. And yet, behind the scenes, there was still respect. Steph never told anyone, but the jersey still hung in his house. He had moved it from his childhood bedroom to his personal gym, placing it where he could see it every time he trained. The world saw them as enemies, but Steph never forgot who had believed in him first. And maybe, just maybe, LeBron never forgot either. The year was 2023, and for the first time in years, the rivalry was set for one final clash. Warriors versus Lakers. Steph versus LeBron. The world had never seen stakes like this. LeBron was 38, still defying time, still dominating in ways that didn't make sense. Steph was 35, still draining impossible threes, still proving that his reign wasn't over. The finals had never meant more. This wasn't just about another ring. This was about history. Then, everything changed. It started as a whisper, a rumor floating through sports circles, an anonymous tip sent to a journalist. Then it became a headline. Then it became a bombshell, a leaked email. Not just any email, an internal document from the NBA. The contents were devastating. A private conversation discussing the outcome of the finals. Words carefully chosen, but impossible to misinterpret. This year's winner will define the future narrative of the league. A LeBron victory cements his GOAT case. A Steph win strengthens the Warriors' dynasty beyond debate. We need to consider what is best for the long-term global appeal of the NBA. The implication was clear. The finals had never been as fair as they seemed. For years, fans had debated conspiracy theories. The league wanted LeBron to win in 2016. They protected Steph's Warriors to create a dynasty. No one had ever been able to prove it. Until now. And suddenly, everything they had fought for, every title, every game, every defining moment, was in question. Steph saw the news while sitting in the Warriors' film room, his heart pounding as he scrolled through the article. He read it once, then again, his grip tightening around his phone. This couldn't be real. It had to be fake, a smear campaign, a desperate attempt to create controversy. But as he scrolled further, his stomach dropped. The email was real. LeBron saw it too. Across the country, sitting in his private training facility, he stared at the same words, his jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. His entire career, every moment, every battle, every championship, was now tainted by doubt. The world had already chosen sides. Some believed the email was misleading, that it was just a business conversation about branding. Others believed it was proof that the league had manipulated history for years. But for Steph and LeBron, none of that mattered. The only thing that mattered was what they would do next. Steph had been through chaos before, Game 7s, hostile crowds, seasons where everything was on the line. He had been doubted, underestimated, overlooked. But this was different. This wasn't about a game. This was about his entire career. The email leak spread like wildfire. Within hours, every sports network, every website, every fan forum was dissecting it. The question wasn't just about the 2023 finals anymore. It was about history itself. Were the championships real? Were the legendary moments scripted? Had everything they believed in been manipulated? ESPN's breaking news banner blared across screens worldwide. NBA finals rigged? Internal emails suggest legacy-building manipulation. Inside the article, the leaked document showed what appeared to be a deliberate effort to guide the finals outcomes. Words like marketability, legacy-driven narratives, protecting the brand jumped off the screen like gunshots. The implications were terrifying. LeBron James and Steph Curry, two of the greatest players in NBA history, might have never truly played on a level playing field. Fans reacted instantly. Some were furious. I knew it. They wanted LeBron to be the GOAT. Others were skeptical. No way, this has to be fake. The NBA wouldn't risk its credibility. But the one thing everyone agreed on was simple. If this was true, basketball had been a lie. Inside the Warriors' training facility, Steph sat on the edge of a weight bench, his phone buzzing endlessly. Texts, calls, emails, reporters demanding comments, fans asking if he had known, other players sending cryptic messages. His mind was racing, but nothing made sense. He had played this game his whole life. He had worked for every inch of success. And now people were questioning whether any of it had been real. He turned the phone over in his hands, gripping it tightly. Somewhere across the country, LeBron James was going through the exact same thing. LeBron sat in his personal training facility, staring at his laptop, watching the news dissect his legacy in real time. Every ring he had fought for, every MVP, every sacrifice, and now the world was asking if he had ever really earned them. Skip Bayless was already talking. What did I tell y'all? LeBron's entire career has been handed to him on a silver platter. Others defended him. Even if the NBA wanted him to win, he still had to play. He still had to perform. None of it mattered, because LeBron didn't want excuses. He didn't want a legacy that needed explanations. Both men felt the same sickening weight pressing down on them. They had always believed that greatness was earned, not given. Now, for the first time, they weren't sure. They met that night. No cameras, no press, no distractions. Just two men who had given their lives to basketball, now forced to question everything they had ever fought for. The room was dimly lit, a single overhead lamp casting long shadows across the floor. Steph sat across from LeBron, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. He looked up, his face unreadable. LeBron leaned back, arms crossed. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Steph broke the silence. His voice was low, controlled. What if it's true? LeBron exhaled sharply through his nose. What if it is? Steph shook his head. rubbing his hands together. Do we play, knowing the league might have already chosen the winner? LeBron's jaw tightened. He leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow across the table. His voice was sharp. They think they control our legacy. They think we'll just play along. Steph let out a slow breath, nodding slightly. They don't own what we've built. LeBron studied him for a moment, then sat back. That was the moment. The moment they decided that this wasn't about a ring anymore. This wasn't about adding another championship to their resumes. This was about proving that no one, not the media, not the league, not the executives in their offices, controlled them. For the first time in their careers, winning wasn't the point. The point was to expose the game for what it really was. The NBA moved fast. Too fast. By midnight, both Steph and LeBron had been summoned to a closed-door meeting with league officials. No public statements. No lawyers. Just the two biggest names in basketball face-to-face with the people who ran the game. They were led into a high-rise office, deep inside NBA headquarters. The walls were lined with championship banners. Photos of legends. A shrine to the game they had given everything to. A long conference table stretched across the center of the room. 5 executives sat on one side. Steph and LeBron on the other. No one spoke at first. Then, a man in a suit leaned forward, hands folded in front of him. His voice was smooth, practiced. This is bad for all of us. LeBron didn't blink. Define bad. The man gave a tight-lipped smile. Misunderstandings like this hurt the integrity of the league. Steph scoffed. Integrity? The executive ignored him. We need to contain this before it spirals. We're offering a deal. A pre-written statement. A public dismissal of the leak. A guarantee that the finals will be clean. LeBron raised an eyebrow. Clean? Meaning what? That this time, you won't pick the winner. The room went silent. The executive leaned forward, his voice lower now. This league has made both of you global icons. Billionaires. We've given you everything, and we can take it away just as easily. A warning. Steph clenched his jaw. So we stay quiet, or we suffer the consequences? The man didn't answer. He didn't have to. LeBron let out a slow, measured breath. Then he looked at Steph. That silent conversation between them, the one they had been having for nearly a decade, spoke louder than words. They weren't just players. They were assets, brands, products used to shape a global narrative. And for the first time in their lives, they had to decide if they were willing to fight back. The finals were just days away, but the game had already changed. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. It wasn't about rings, legacies, or even competition. This was about control, about power, about a system that had shaped the very sport they loved without them even realizing it. For years, Steph had played with an unshakable belief that if he worked harder, trained smarter, and outplayed everyone on the court, nothing else would matter. But now he knew better. He had seen the emails. He had heard the warnings. He had sat across from league officials who thought they could manipulate his destiny like it was nothing. And yet, as he sat alone in his home, staring at the jersey hanging on the wall, the one LeBron had given him all those years ago, he felt something stir inside him. That kid from Davidson, the one who played purely for the love of the game, was still in there. This wasn't about beating LeBron. It was about taking the game back. His phone was already in his hand before he even realized what he was doing. He dialed. The line rang once, then twice. LeBron picked up. We're playing this game, Steph said, his voice steady. But we're playing it our way. There was a pause. Then a quiet laugh on the other end. Damn right we are. The energy in the arena was unlike anything before. It wasn't just another Game 7. It wasn't just another finals. The entire world was watching, and everyone knew it. This wasn't just about who would win. This was about whether basketball was still real. Cameras zoomed in on Steph and LeBron during warm-ups, searching for any sign of tension, any cracks in their armor. Analysts speculated about the controversy, about whether the NBA had tried to smooth things over behind the scenes. But neither of them said a word, because the truth wasn't going to be spoken. It was going to be played. The opening tip-off was a blur of movement, but from the very first play, something was different. There were no theatrics, no choreographed moments, just basketball, the way it was meant to be played. Every possession was a battle. Every shot contested. Every rebound fought for. No flopping. No whining to the refs. No unnecessary stoppages. Just pure, relentless competition. And the crowd? They felt it. The tension wasn't just about who would win. It was about what this game meant. For years, fans had argued, debated, dissected every moment of their careers. Was Steph's dynasty greater than LeBron's reign? Had the NBA been pushing one over the other? Had their legacies already been decided before they even stepped onto the court? Not tonight, because tonight, everything was real. And when the final minutes arrived, the game was tied. Of course it was, because some things can't be scripted. There were 20 seconds left. The score was tied at 103 to 103. Steve Kerr didn't even need to call the play. Everyone in the arena, hell, everyone in the world already knew what was coming. Steph brought the ball up the court, moving like he had done 1,000 times before. But this wasn't like before. This wasn't a normal shot. This wasn't just another play. This was everything. LeBron switched on him near the three-point line. The king versus the sniper. One last time, the crowd held its breath. LeBron's stance was wide, his eyes locked onto Steph's. He had seen this move before. He had studied every hesitation dribble, every subtle fake, every shift of weight. But so had Steph. He bounced the ball once, twice, then pulled back, just an inch, just enough to make LeBron hesitate. And that was all he needed. Steph rose up. LeBron lunged forward, a hand in his face. A contest as perfect as it could be. The ball left Steph's hands. The arc was high, higher than usual. Time seemed to freeze. The ball spun through the air, rotating perfectly, spiraling toward its destination. Nothing else mattered. Not the league, not the scandals, not the debates, just the game. And then, swish, the net snapped. The buzzer sounded. Steph didn't even watch it go in. He already knew. Warriors 106. Lakers 103. The dynasty lived. And history? History had just been rewritten. The Chase Center erupted. The Warriors bench spilled onto the court, arms raised in triumph. Fans screamed, jumping in the stands, some even in tears. The buzzer had sounded. The game was over. History had been rewritten. But Steph didn't celebrate. Not yet. He stood at midcourt, his chest rising and falling, his hands resting on his knees as he caught his breath. He had hit big shots before. He had won championships before. But this one was different, because this time he had won on his terms. He turned, scanning the chaos around him, and there was LeBron, still standing at the top of the key, hands on his hips, staring up at the Jumbotron. The replay of Steph's shot looped over and over. The perfect release, the perfect arc, the ball slicing through the net like fate had already written it. LeBron closed his eyes. Then he let out a long breath and walked toward Steph. The crowd noise blurred as the two met at center court. For a second, neither of them spoke. They had played each other too many times, fought too many battles, earned too many scars to let this one moment define everything between them. But this moment did matter. LeBron nodded, a small smirk forming on his lips. Hell of a shot. Steph chuckled, shaking his head. I had to make it interesting. LeBron exhaled sharply, then pulled Steph into a hug. The cameras caught it, the two greatest players of their generation, standing together, acknowledging what they had just done. They had just given basketball back to the players. The media storm was immediate. Every sports network, every website, every fan discussion forum exploded with theories. Had the NBA really tried to control the finals? Had the league expected Steph and LeBron to play along like every other year? Reporters flooded the post-game press conferences, but the two men said nothing. They didn't need to. The way they had played spoke for itself. No theatrics, no drama, just basketball played the way it was meant to be, and the world had seen it. The NBA front office panicked. Behind the scenes, executives scrambled to regain control of the narrative. They tried to push statements, to downplay the leak, to insist that the finals had been clean all along. But the fans didn't buy it. They had seen something different. They had seen two legends refuse to be puppets. And no amount of PR spin could change that. 3 weeks later, Steph sat in his home, flipping through channels, half listening to analysts dissect the finals. Some called it the greatest Game 7 in NBA history. Others called it the moment basketball changed forever. He barely heard them. His mind was somewhere else. A package had arrived that morning. No sender. No return address. Just a box with his name on it. He opened it slowly, his fingers tracing the edges of the cardboard. Inside, neatly folded, was a jersey. Not just any jersey. The jersey. LeBron's old Cleveland Cavaliers jersey. The same one he had given Steph back in 2008. The same one Steph had framed for years. The one with the message. To the future of basketball. Keep proving them wrong. Except now there was one more line, written in fresh ink, just beneath the old signature. We did. Steph stared at the words for a long time. Then, for the first time since the finals ended, he smiled. Basketball had always been more than just a game. It was a battleground where legacies were built, where names were etched into history, where the greatest proved their worth. But this story wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about who controls the narrative, the players who give everything on the court, or the unseen forces who try to shape the sport from the shadows. Steph and LeBron had been given a choice: accept the script or tear it apart. They chose to fight, not with words, not with scandals, but by doing what they had always done, playing the game the right way. In the end, their greatest victory wasn't in the final score, but in proving that real greatness can't be manipulated, bought, or written by anyone but the players themselves. Legacies aren't given. They are earned, and sometimes they're taken back. This wasn't just a championship game. It was a reminder that power only exists when people allow it. The NBA wanted a story, but what they got was something far greater. Two legends refusing to be controlled, playing not for history books, not for corporations, but for the love of the game. The world had witnessed something raw, something real, a reminder that true greatness isn't measured in trophies or headlines, but in the moments where you refuse to let others define who you are.